This is ridiculous. What are you doing? Muppets.
Welcome to the running channel. I'm Kate, and together with Anna and Rick today we're going to talk about tempo running. It's a really important part of your longer distance running training, but it's also a really confusing term for a lot of people.
That's right, and it doesn't help that people often use it interchangeably with terms like threshold run and race pace run.
So hopefully today we'll give you some tips on what tempo running is, when you should be doing them and how long for. If you're new around here, we upload 3 videos every week, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you get notified when we do.
Literally, tempo means pace or speed. A tempo run, however, is when you're running at a comfortably hard pace. Now, I know that seems like a complete contradiction in terms, but it needs to be a pace that you could sustain for around about 20 to 30 minutes while running rather hard. So it's not a sprint, but it's the type of pace where you could just go, yeah, let's turn left at the right, okay, yeah, okay, I'm fine, but you certainly couldn't sustain a conversation.
So that's the simple explanation. The more technical one is about lactate threshold. Now, for most people, tempo running is the same as threshold running. So you want to get to a point where you're running at a pace where your body doesn't accumulate lactate, and that's the waste product that your body creates when you run.
The way this happens is like a curve. As you speed up, your body's still shifting the lactate out until you hit your own particular threshold, at which point that curve goes steeply up. Now, when you're doing a tempo run, you really don't want to be going into that curve, otherwise you're going to crash and burn.
So now you know what tempo running is, how does it actually help? Well, the idea is to train your body to run at just below your lactate threshold point, which you can then nudge up just a little. So you're running, you'll be able to go further and faster before those tired legs set in that's caused by a buildup of that nasty lactic acid.
That's right, so all the pro athletes do them from middle distance all the way through to the marathon, and they can help you too.
Tempo running is also helpful for building up that stamina and mental toughness that you need for racing. And it really takes you out of your comfort zone.
So you're probably wondering exactly what pace you should be doing your tempo runs at. Well, the answer to that is as technical as you want it to be. If you are a really data-driven person who wants a very specific number for that, then the most accurate way is to get a threshold test done in a lab on a treadmill. But that obviously does involve paying for something, although some universities with sports science departments might be doing some work with their students which will enable you to get one for free, so that's worth looking out for.
Many of the new generation of sports watches also make a decent estimate of what your threshold pace is based on your heart rate during your runs. You usually need to do a specific test for this and go out running a fair bit just so they can work it out from a baseline. Now, do be wary of the results though, because they don't take set conditions on the day into account. So if you're running uphill, for example, you've got an icy headwind, those things aren't going to be logged down.
If you're not one for tests or devices, then aim for a pace that's somewhere between your current 10k race pace and half marathon race pace. That will probably look like something around 25 to 30 seconds per mile slower than your current 5k race pace.
How often you do tempo runs obviously depends on how often you're running and for how long for, but it's generally a good idea to fit one tempo run into your schedule every single week, but that doesn't have to be for the whole run. For example, if you're going out on a 40-minute run, you could use the first 10 minutes as a warm-up, the next 20 as tempo, and use the final 10 as a cool down.
As with all runs that feel comfortably hard compared to your easy runs, for example, it's really good to try and find somewhere where you can really get into your groove for a tempo run. After all, tempo running is all about finding that rhythm. And that's going to be pretty hard to do if you have to keep stopping and starting at traffic lights or for people and pedestrians. So finding somewhere that you can have a clear run is best for tempo running.
Now, you don't just have to do your tempo runs as single runs within your schedule. You can also build some tempo work into your longer runs. Say, for example, you're training for a marathon, you might build some into one of your really long runs, perhaps doing 2 20-minute tempo runs, bookending around a 1 hour easy run.
Typically 20 minutes is sufficient for a tempo run, or if you're going for general fitness or a 5k, then 2 to 3 miles will do the trick. People who are training for longer distances will do longer tempo runs, so maybe if you're training for a 10k you might do 4 to 6 miles a tempo run. If you're doing a half marathon, 6 to 8, and if you're training for a marathon, then maybe 8 to 10 miles for a tempo run.
But if you can't keep it up for 20 minutes, then you've probably started too fast. The whole idea with a tempo run is that you find a pace that feels hard enough that you feel really like you've worked out afterwards, but you don't have to give up because it's just too much. And that's also why it's sometimes a really good idea during a tempo run not to look at your watch, because how you feel can really change. One thing I know is that on a cold winter's morning when you're on your own and it's grey outside, tempo run can feel like sprinting.
Hopefully that's given you the basics on tempo running and why you might want to add it to your routine. Leave us a comment or a question below, and we'll see you next time on the Running Channel.